A slew of new health data trackers are hitting the market, which will literally monitor everything that we do from morning to night, as well as when we're sleeping. Is this something the world will need in the future? We're going to check on the pros and the cons about all of this new tracking era on this episode of Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me on the show today is David Liu. He is the CEO of Sonde Health. Welcome to the show, David.
Hi there. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, I want to go over a lot of the different health trackers that we're seeing, and one of them is some of the stuff that you work with at Sonde Health. So we'll give you a chance to talk about some of that technology as well. But this is just what we've noticed over the last couple of months. Obviously, they've been around for a while. So these are some of the devices that we're thinking about will be in the future, or a lot of us will have more of than what's out there right now. So obviously, heart rate sensors, whether it's something like on a Fitbit or on a watch. Apple, for example, just announced sleep apnea detection and some hearing aid functionality with some of their Apple AirPod Pros. Your company does voice analysis for health data tracking. I want to get to that in a second, but I want to go through some of these other ones. We've seen sleep analysis trackers where you put a sensor under your pillow and it monitors your sleep. I've seen weight loss devices where you breathe into a machine and it tracks whether at like a good time for when your breath apparently can detect when you should eat and when you shouldn't eat. We've even seen smart toilets, which I don't want to get into. But they will, analyze everything that's coming out of you as well. And then obviously smart rings and maybe bracelets. I think I've even seen. But just really quickly, your company does what? Because it analyzes your voice for mental health. Is that right?
Yeah. So we analyze the sound of your voice and the way you speak through vocal biomarkers coming out of your body, and just another data stream that is actually quite rich with health information. And so we are a technology API and SDK that leverages existing devices, whether they be smartphones, whether they be appliances, cars, anything with a microphone and a modest chipset. We can then extract these data from voice to give you health tracking, yes, in the areas of mental health, in the areas of cognitive health.
All right, so it's not like you could analyze my voice right now and tell me if I'm coming down with a cold, right? It's more about my mood and maybe some trigger, I don't want to say triggers, but signals that indicate some levels of mental health awareness and things like that.
We actually do have a respiratory
do you?
as well. Yeah, so we can give you it's really relative risk levels is what we're providing you data and insight on, and for respiratory conditions like COPD or asthma. So here is a very simple explanation. It's based on physiology. Mm-hmm. We know that chronic conditions of the body, when they start taking hold, they affect different systems of the body. One of those systems is your voice. And we are the preeminent, we believe, one of the leading companies in the world that is able to analyze the health of your voice with respect to those specific chronic diseases that impact your vocal cords and all of the entire system, including your brain, that allows us to produce intelligible speech.
Right. And it's more than just if I was a smoker, for example, and I was like, hey, everybody, how's it going? And talking like that, you'd be able to tell that I was a smoker. But it's a lot more than that. So if you're interested, I would say as a viewer, just go to the Sonde Health website. But I want to ask you more about some bigger picture items in this space. So as you're tracking a lot of these different types of devices and tools, what are you seeing about what is out there that's enabling a lot of these new devices to come out there? What's gotten better in the last few years? Because obviously, Fitbits and those have been around, and watches have been around for probably a decade or so now. But what is it that, why are we seeing this new wave of technology and devices?
Well, I think first of all, people start with the demand. And it's not just the healthcare industry. It's military. It's everybody under the sun wants to be better about understanding how to keep people well and healthy, and beyond that, at the highest, performing at the highest performance level. And so, what we once thought of something that was reserved for elite athletes, mm-hmm. human performance optimization. When we think about those terms, we think about elite athletes, maybe we think about the military. Those are not reserved for those people anymore. We all have the ability, and of course, with the advent and the advances that have been made in chip technology, smaller, faster, right, and of course, can handle a lot more processing and models within these chipsets. The advent of devices that can sense all of these signals coming from your body, whether it be from your skin or sound from your voice. These have all been advancing, but it really goes back to, I do believe that so many parts of our society, and that's not just in this country, now understand that there is data there that can be leveraged to not only keep people well, but keep people performing at a very high level. And this is not just, again, relegated and relevant to people who are at the top levels of athletics or in the military. This could be as relevant for someone who's a parent, someone who is a teacher, who is a healthcare provider. We all want to be the best versions of ourselves physically and mentally.
All right, I want to get back to that in a second, but I also wanted to ask, do you also see in the space that maybe developments in another technology or another area of the tech world could help bring the cost down on some of these things? Like, we hear that, as cameras got smaller and smaller and they were used in autonomous vehicles and things like that, that drove the price down. So as we advance in one technology, that creates, opportunities for other technologies. And maybe are we seeing that with AI too, where maybe, the new AI chipsets, all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, now I can use that instead of the old more expensive chipset.
Well, absolutely. I mean, AI in all forms, not just generative AI, but all forms of AI. We use machine learning, and what we do continues to drive down the cost, and it drives up the speed by which we're able to get at the right information and provide the right insight. So all of that has accelerated this adoption and this capability. I would be remiss to not talk about the fact that edge processing and again, chipsets enable local edge processing to happen. Apple announced that recently too. More of what they're going to be doing is going to live on the edge of the device. And why not? This is how we've developed our technology so that the voice recording never leaves the device, is deleted immediately after scores are created. Those insights live locally to the device. And so you have a data security and safety, privacy, that you're taking care of all by taking care of all that local to the device.
All right, so you were talking about how the willingness of a lot of people to be interested in their data. I was also wondering if this includes generational. As you look at the demographics, are younger generations more likely to adopt or be willing to adopt a lot of these new devices? Obviously, I think if you're an athlete and you're training, you are interested because you want to see those little small changes or see that that progress is being made. But are you also seeing that maybe younger generations want to track their data more so than an older generation who might just say, oh, I'll just go to the doctor and continue that rather than just track all of my information and then go to the doctor later?
Look, I don't have direct information and data about the demographics of the adoption of this, but what we do see, of course, the younger generations, Gen Z and even younger, I guess, what's the next one?
Gen Alpha. Gen Z, after Gen Z is Gen Alpha, I believe. Yeah.
Gen Alpha, there you go. So look, they've grown up with the technology all around them. I don't even think it's something that they think about. Okay, so we older generations think about these things. They don't. It's not even a thing that they think about. It's something that is expected. So that's how I think about the younger generation. Older generations, I think it's interesting. You see some of the folks who are entering the late years of their lives, and these maybe baby boomers or Gen X. They're already incredibly sophisticated users of smartphone technology and all these other technologies. So I think for them, it again, they're probably more developed than we really think that they are. I think it's this general notion that we can be empowered through technology to make small micro changes every day that make a big impact, whether that be increasing our sleep, or you see all the sleep apnea and sleep detection and tracking that's coming through Apple, Samsung, and every other company out there by trying to detect motion right through your wrist, through the accelerometer. Why is that? Well, it's all about what we used to call body hacking, right? Years ago, we used to call this initiative or this series of things that we could do to hack our body. Why would we want to do that? There's the longevity thing, living longer, living healthier. That used to be, whoa, those are people who are really just interested, hyper focused, it's a sliver of the population. I actually believe that right now everyone is beginning to understand this is technology that is available. And by the way, it shouldn't just be available to people who can afford a $400 wearable.
Yeah. So, as more and more people start to do this, let's extrapolate this out for, a few more years as more and more of these devices come on the market. From the doctor side of things, are you hearing from doctors that they're willing to accept a lot of this data in their analysis of a patient? I keep thinking about my doctor, and she might freak out if I come in to my next physical and I have a stack of papers this high, and I go, okay, here's all my data tracking for the last year. Here's my heart rate. Here's my, sugar levels. Here's what, whatever. Here's my sleep. Here's my urine samples from the smart toilet that I have. Go and because again, I don't know if I want to I don't know if I want to analyze all of that data. But I want to leave it to the expert. Are the doctors that you're talking with for your technology, for example, they'd obviously have to be amenable to that. But what are you hearing?
Yeah, again, I think there are generational differences there too. I think with clinicians, younger ones are absolutely interested in understanding what's happening outside of the appointment. And I think even the older ones are interested in knowing what's going on with my patient outside of the appointment. And that was the allure initially of digital health, right? Was to be able to provide a lot of this information and engagement outside of the appointment. It's now coming through wearables. Absolutely. Apple's banking on the fact that you're going to want to take some of this information to your doctor. I think doctors and clinicians are, in my opinion, from what we've seen, a lot more open to understanding these technologies and even using them in their own practices or their protocols. So again, I think it's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people are going to bring in a stack of papers, but certainly why not show a screen?
Yeah, I'm old school, so I still print out everything. But you're right. I mean, why not just show you hand over your phone to your doctor and say, hey, here's all the tracking that I've got on the app. So so. I guess you're right. If you had an older doctor that was used to doing
some companies will integrate it into the EMRs, right? That's going to happen, right? And then it's up to the patient to go ahead and upload that into, their clinician's EMR. So,
that would be cool. It would be cool for me to be able to do that on my own medical record, right?
Yeah. And people, I think these bigger tech companies like Apple are going to try to do that. Why not?
And so I'm also wondering if the slew of devices that come out might also increase the number of devices of things that say they do something but maybe don't. I'm a little worried about that kind of space. And we used to call those quack medicines or anything like that. And you start seeing there's a lot of advertising and social media things like. And again, I don't want to pick on a specific device, but if I had a device that tracked my breath and then could tell me all of the stuff from my breath, I'd be a little wary, without knowing the background of that. Do you think that companies are going to start being held more accountable if they're not providing any data that proves that whatever claim they're making? Because I don't have I don't know. It feels like magic for a lot of these new devices.
Well, I can't speak for all these companies. I'm sure there are bad actors out there. I mean, it just I'm sure there are. But for us, what I can speak to is the fact that everything we do is clinically validated. We invest more in clinical research, or as much in clinical research as we do in our model development, because it's just necessary to be able to prove out, build the models and our technology and use it and make sure that it works in a clinical setting. And the data set is very important too. So yes, I believe that there probably will be bad actors out there with any gold rush, with any heat, around an activity that seems to be popular. But I think what you'll see, and I think our system is set up quite well for this, is that you have to prove your validation, your clinical validation, and whether you are in the general wellness category of these devices, which is most of these health trackers are in, or whether you are an actual medical device to assess a medical condition.
Right.
Those have different standards that are set up by the FDA and others. So you have to follow those.
Yeah.
But look, I think one of the things that I just want to make sure that you understand is we spent years collecting voice data from clinical settings, working with clinical collaborators, hospital systems, different clinical providers, because you really can't build models on this stuff, voice recordings from TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. You can't do that. You have to be able to get voice samples from people who have been diagnosed with a condition,
Right.
health condition, and compare those with people who are seemingly healthy or determined to be healthy by a clinician. And then from there, we then build models off of that. In our industry, much like many of these trackers, there's a garbage in, garbage out problem.
Yeah, and if you're a doctor, you could probably spot some of the, if a company comes to you as a doctor, that you could pretty much spot whether something is legit or not based on the background that they have with, the studies and things like that, right?
I'm not a doctor.
Oh,
but
you're not a doctor. But you assume that doctors could be able to do that and not just start endorsing things.
I mean, they're pretty busy. But yeah, I think the clinical organizations that they work for do vet things. Absolutely.
So I wanted to address really the elephant in the room, obviously, with the big con of or not con like con artists, but more like pros and cons, is the safety of the health data that's being tracked, right? That would be the biggest concern for a consumer going in and getting one of this is like, all right, how are you protecting my data? How are you making sure that the data doesn't get leaked out somewhere? Obviously there's legislation like HIPAA, but a proliferation of new data for me, if I'm a prime target, now, hackers might start going after a lot of this health data. Do you feel like that the data is secure enough? But, we've always heard with everything around security and data, nothing is 100% certain. So could you start seeing hackers not just go after financial information for people, but they could actually start targeting health data in the future?
I think they've already done that. I think there was a health system that had a breach recently. I can't remember which one it was. So, hackers will do what hackers do, and then they go after, vulnerabilities to exploit for money. And so that's what they do. So that will not change anytime soon. But what I can speak to is, on our end, we before we have a conversation about how we deliver the solution that we deliver, we always talk about, well, what are the privacy, what are the safety and security considerations that we need to take into into our planning sessions for our product development? Because for us, even though we're in the health and wellness space, we are creating insight, we're creating health data, health and wellness related data. Health tracking is health data.
Yeah.
And so we have to take a lot of, I would say, just very good upfront thinking about this stuff really takes care of it. And of course, the business model helps. We are in the business of licensing our platform to those who are interested in tracking this information to improve health outcomes.
Right.
To find people and keep them healthy. We are not in the business of selling advertising. We're not in the business of selling products on behalf of other advertisers. And so the business model really drives companies, ultimately will care about. And so we do absolutely care about this. If we don't keep our customers' data safe, and then we won't have a business. Now, the second thing that we do is technically, we take precautions there as well. So what we do is we talked a little bit, you and I, about edge processing of the data and delivering our SDK so it lives within the app architecture on the device, locally to the device.
Right.
We also can embed our technology into device chipsets that are made by Qualcomm and other chipset OEMs. So that really is great because then all of the voice processing, the analysis that happens, the scoring that happens, the recording that happens, happens local to the device. And with all of our commercial customers, we delete the voice recordings. I don't want any of that because we don't know what we're going to end up recording. So we delete it. It's deleted on the device. It never ends up going to the cloud.
Yeah.
And These are
do you see a lot?
technical.
Yeah. Do you see a lot more companies doing that as time goes on? I think initially there was probably a concern. There was the thought of, oh well, we'll put everything on the cloud. Yeah, the cloud's secure, et cetera, et cetera. But then I think as edge processing gained more favor with people and these chipsets were developed, if I was a company in that space, I'd be like, let's just keep everything on the device and not have to go to the cloud unless it's non-private data. Like if you need data that's not private and
Yeah,
more secure.
I think this is not a big dilemma for us because
Yeah,
we've made that choice early on, and then we
right.
made the huge investment to gather data through our clinical collaborators. Those voice samples we own. Those samples are proprietary, and so we can improve our modeling. We can do all the things that we do with those. With our commercial customers, we made that decision. I made that decision very early on that we're not going to go train our models on that because there is this risk. And what it has done, it's been incredible. I think this is the new kind of era that we're marching into because these chipsets can handle a lot more of this data processing. They can handle. There's just more memory at the end of the day to be able to handle different executions of processing happening on the chipset, not just the core
Right.
phone operations, for example. You're going to be able to do this. So we made that choice because it's safer, the experience is way faster, way better, and it's more secure.
Yeah. So another area of concern for me would also be this idea of the technology sounds really good initially, but then somehow, as the technology gains more and more popularity, then other companies come in or they go, well, we can use that same technology but do something else with it. For example, facial recognition, I'm going to use that as an example. It came out as a way of this is how we authenticate you, and it's a security tool, and this is an easier way to do some things. And then companies are like, well, we can do the same thing, and we can start profiling people, and we can start, maybe using it for law enforcement. And so you start seeing bad things come out of a technology that initially was good. And I'm wondering if that would happen with a lot of these new technologies that are aimed at doing one thing to help people, but then in the end, for example, like maybe if you build a sweat tracker, for example, and you could start seeing if someone is sweating on a camera, and I guess that's a little bit of facial recognition, but you could then see if they're nervous and maybe lying on a job interview. I've heard of some AI tools that will watch you while you're doing a job interview, and they can tell whether you're lying or not. And like that concerns me, even though the technology was initially done for something else. There's another, and again, before you respond, there was a news story I read about 23andMe where there's some concerns that the company is potentially in trouble, but they've got all of this DNA data for people. Initially, they're like, oh yeah, give us your saliva and we'll tell you your family history. But now they've got all this data, and if the company decides to sell that data to another company at some point, like they could, in theory, so then that other one could then use it for more nefarious purposes or advertising and things like that. So how concerned should consumers be if they kind of opt into something like this, knowing that maybe down the road someone else might use that data for something else? And again, I don't want you to speak for for your company.
No,
Obviously, you've got your
generally
protections.
speaking, yeah. No, I think everyone should be quite vigilant about what biomarker or what type of data they are providing any of these experiences, and it should be quite transparent what it's being used for, and those things should be again upfront explained, and people should be able to opt in. I do think it's with any kind of innovation, there is going to be the settling out period where people are going to figure out, oh, this is going to be the safest way. This is going to be the best way to do some things. These are the players that we can trust, right? To be able to work with, and I think it's great for younger companies, less well-known companies, to be working with more established companies, because you're going to learn. Okay, what are some of the concerns, and how do we mitigate some of these things, because the bigger, older company has seen some of these, and so that can speed up the learning curve for some of these younger companies that are bringing some of these innovations to market.
Do you see a future where people are going to be willing to allow themselves to be tracked in this way? In the future?
What way?
Well,
In what way?
if you know, if there's this proliferation of devices that are able to track everything, do you see a world in the future where everybody is basically monitored from morning, when they wake up, and then all throughout the day, and then even at night when they're sleeping? You're going to have tons and tons and tons of data, or is it going to be maybe that a consumer will probably pick and choose what they want monitored, and then just kind of go from there? I'm just worried about that dystopian future where everything is monitored on me, and and I walk in and they're like, "Well, Keith, your heart rate wasn't very good today, and we know this, so we're not going to sell you this cheeseburger now."
Right. Or insurance.
Yeah, I mean that's the big one too, is insurance
Right.
denying certain
Look,
capabilities.
I think we are fast moving down that path. People have already voted with their adoption wallet. They've already, what is it, 50 plus million Apple Watch users now at this point, Apple Watch customers a year that purchase Apple Watches. That's a huge chunk of the U.S. population and internationally.
Right.
They're already doing this, and God knows how many Alexas and other smart speakers are in different homes around the countries. Cars all have, right, voice recognition now, and have that. So I think it is part responsibility of the provider of the technology to make it very easy and clear as to why we are providing this tracking, and why it goes back to the value exchange.
Yeah.
What value are you providing the consumer? Does the consumer understand that? And then do they also understand the risks that are involved in providing you with this information? And are you making that very transparent? And I think there are companies out there that are doing a pretty good job. But if you're saying, are people worried about it? I think they're worried about it after the fact.
Yeah,
they're already doing it.
Yeah, and it right, especially if a company decides to do something that's not cool with what they might have initially wanted to do.
Oh, people react pretty quickly. I think if they find out, then they vote with their wallet, and they stop purchasing or using that particular product. So I think that's maybe what happened with Amazon and Alexa. I think people started getting pretty concerned about that, and that's not sure how they fare, but I think there's been some impact.
As you look at the number of devices that are coming out, from a hardware perspective, do you see more of the same, where we keep getting new and new, more and more new devices, or will there be a consolidation of the hardware? Maybe a lot of this will just end up on a single device that you wear, whether it's a watch or a bracelet or a ring, or maybe a little thing you put on the top of your face, on your top of your head. Eyeglass. I've heard eyeglasses and in earbuds is a possibility that could add a lot of these sensors. Is there going to be a consolidation into a single device, or maybe 2 or 3 rather than like 10 or 12 or whatever? Could it end up on the phone too? I mean, could a lot of this stuff end up on the phone?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is on the phone already, but yeah, no, I think some of the bigger companies out there would hope for some consolidation, right? They definitely would benefit from that. Apple being the foremost. Yes, I think consumers and people generally want simple.
Yeah.
Right. They
Yeah.
don't want a lot of clutter. They don't want to have to manage a bunch of different things and a bunch of different dashboards, for God's sake.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
So
imagine all the consolidation that has to go on there? Whew.
ultimately, people want simple.
Yeah.
Companies like us, we're not in the hardware business, and we're not a device OEM. We're not betting on any one device, to win. So what our job is to make sure that any device that is in the health tracking business, that has a microphone and a chipset, can be enabled with our capability.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, isn't it the right thing to do to provide the entire world with this capability of health tracking, so that they can monitor not only their physical conditions and how well they're improving their physical fitness, but also their mental and cognitive fitness? It is
Yeah.
the complete picture that we want, and this should be offered to everyone, not just the people on the coast of the United States, the intellectual elite, if you would call them, or the rich, but it should be available to every villager in every country around the world who has an access to one of these devices, which
Yeah.
increasingly is a lot more of the population.
Yeah, I would say consolidate everything except maybe the smart toilet stuff. You should just leave that there. Don't like I don't want that on my phone, or anything like that. Getting back to the tracking everything, my producer sent me a note. He said Minority Report. It sounds like, is this where we're gonna head to, or it feels like you're an optimist, David, and that you're siding on the side of no, everybody will take care of this thing, and this won't be used to help predict
That's not what I'm
future
saying.
events. Okay.
Sorry to give you
No.
that impression. I feel like
We try to predict like good and bad out of everything because
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
technology
no.
is.
I think we will learn. There will be speed bumps along the way for sure, and there will be bad actors as we talked about.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love Minority Report, that movie. But I do think so many of those things are coming to fruition. But again, I think you have to understand what service you're using, and I think consumers are becoming a lot more sophisticated. They know why it is, what this company is that I'm purchasing this product to do. What is the value exchange? What am I providing? What am I getting back? And what are the rules around what it is that this company is using my information for?
Right.
I think we're becoming a lot more sophisticated, and companies, I think, hopefully, are going to continue to be a lot more transparent about that. But that won't mean, right, that these bigger players that are in the advertising business or in the business of selling stuff
Yeah.
aren't going to make it a Minority Report reality.
Keep
Right?
that
Of course,
keep them all away from my health information. That's where I draw the line.
I wholeheartedly
Yeah.
agree.
If you had to speculate on a time frame when you think more of this will be adopted mainstream, is it more just looking at the big tech companies like Apple, Google, Samsung, those types of as they add more and more, or do you see
When you say this, what are
well,
you specifically talking about?
I guess health data tracking in general,
Yeah,
or
okay.
do you see this happening? Is this something that's going to happen within the next year or two, or is it going to be they still have to wait for hardware to get a little less expensive or more
Yeah.
adopted? Yeah.
I think general wellness health tracking is going to continue to accelerate and proliferate to more and more of the population, not just in this country, but
Yeah.
around the world. Seeing it in a lot of places. So I think as the technology costs and the costs for smartphones and other devices that are powered off of the smartphone continue to come down, and they will continue to come down, you'll have more and more of the population make this available because that is progress to me. I think human beings are very interesting. 15 years ago, before trackers really took hold on a very mass adoption level, if we were to talk about blood oxygen level, we'd be like, what are you talking about? I need to talk to my doctor about that, right? If we were going to talk about resting heart rate, I need to get my doctor to measure that. Well, fast forward 15 years, that we talk about those things like we talk about the weather now because we now are tracking these things, or at least a good segment of the population
Right.
are
Right.
tracking these things on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And so human beings are interesting in this fact. We pay attention to those things we track.
I think the biggest statement you had there, David, was human beings are interesting, and they certainly are. I'm not going to argue with you on that one.
We pay attention to things we track, and now we talk about hitting, steps target. We talk about trying to keep our heart rate within some range. Why do we do that? Well, we were told that that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to do things. We're told that 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night for an adult is a good thing. Okay, let's try to do that. So I think that will increase. And I'll go back to what I said before. What used to be kind of body hacking for maybe 5% of the population, I think this is just much more of what is going to be going on. Everyone has the ability now, and I think going forward the next 5 years, to be able to pick up software, hardware that is easily accessible and working integrated with their smartphones to be able to improve aspects of their health,
Yeah.
wellness, so that they can achieve their potential in terms of being well and healthy and perform and their own personal performance. You have your own level, I have my own level. I'd like to absolutely hit my ceiling. And why not? If we have the information to help you do that so you can achieve better knowledge and to implement that with sleep and exercise and diet and social interactions, these things that can help you be more effective coworker, father, brother, son. Why not?
All right. I love the optimism there, David. Again, thanks for having this discussion with us on the show today. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and add any thoughts you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.